Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza, your host here at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. Near-death experiences, healing, trauma, and UFOs. It's all here on this podcast right now with my guest, Kat Harrison. I am so excited to have her here. Let's bring her in and welcome her. How are you, Kat? I'm so excited to have you here and talk about all of the things.
I know. I'm so excited too. Thank you so much for having me. I think that this was just in perfect divine timing, and I think that we have a great message to share here. And I'm super excited to be able to be on the show and share this message with everybody. So thank you.
Yes, of course. So let's just get right down to it. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you and um, where you came from in terms of like how your life was before you had your spiritual awakening?
Sure. So I do want to preface before I share. I don't know your take on trigger warnings.
Okay.
In my podcast, I don't do trigger warnings, but I do like to respect other hosts and putting it out there before I do share anything. But I do want everyone to be open to the perspective of not turning this off when they hear the trigger warning and facing the trigger head on, knowing that this is coming up for a reason, this is showing itself for a reason, and it's opportunities for growth and expansion. Because I have not had an easy life. My life was difficult for a very long time. I now study past life regressions, and Dolores Cannon was kind of like my slingshot into
Uh-huh.
spirituality. And every word I read, I just knew it to be so true. And I now have knowing that I chose everything before I came here. So also know that with me sharing this, you're probably going to feel a lot.
Hmm.
I have a very strong charge when I speak. And know that I do understand that I chose this journey for myself as well as the journey that you chose for yourself. So I'll start out by saying that I was born into a very small town in North Carolina. The population was in between 300 and 400 people. It was very much revolved around Christianity and a very religious town. However, the parents I was born to, my dad was an atheist, and my mom was just kind of confused. I had an older brother who was 8 years older than me. And he kind of veered more on the atheist side as well, but he was open minded. Um, and I think that it's important to know this too, because the programming through religion and society, I think, is very important to talk about when we talk about generational trauma, ancestral trauma, and collective trauma, because we're all in this together and we all face the same challenges in these programs. My parents were both very severely abused when they were growing up, had to face some really hard challenges. And as we know, that generation didn't have the tools that we have now. They did the best that they could do with the consciousness that they had. And when they welcomed me into this world, I was unexpected. I was not planned. My mother wasn't supposed to be able to have children. And then here I was, 8 years after their first child. So I think that they were a little overwhelmed. And I don't remember a lot before three, but at 3 years old, I experienced my first near death experience. Um, we were traveling and I was potty training, and my parents got one of those little portable potties to put in the car so that they didn't have to stop a million times on the way to where we were going. And I went potty. I used the door handle to up, and in a split second, I flew out of the door and I went barreling down the road.
Wow.
And what I remembered for most of my life is I remembered rolling down the road. Excuse me. I remember seeing the truck continue to drive and me running after the truck, like thinking that my parents forgot me. But they stopped. My mom came back and held me. They took me to the hospital. I remember having asphalt scraped out of my skin and this little red teddy bear that my brother got me out of a machine in the hospital. And I have pictures all bandaged up and stuff like that. And I didn't realize at the time I suffered head trauma, but it was untreated. And up until a couple of years ago, I didn't realize that it was creating deformity in my jaw and things like that. So I've had physical issues from this experience my whole life that have held in my body. And after that, my mom kind of went unhinged. I think the thought of her daughter could be gone in a split second and her have no control over that really scared her and really triggered a lot of her past traumas. And then by the age of 5, she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and had
Wait,
up to 30.
I'm sorry. Let's go back a little bit. You said that when you fell out of the car, that was your first near-death experience.
Right.
Can you go a little bit more into that? Like, what happened? How did you know you had that? Did the
So
doctors know?
I will,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't remember my near death experience until I started doing meditation.
Okay. Okay. So you had it, but you didn't know then. So later on, she was coming later. Okay. Got it.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. I love writing.
Mhm.
Writing is kind of my thing. So anytime I tell a story, it's kind of like reading a book where you'll kind of be on the edge of your seat at some details, but it'll all
Okay.
come full circle at the end, I promise.
Amazing. Okay.
Um, so yeah, when I was 5, my mom was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and had up to 13 personalities. And the crazy thing about how we create our life and how we mirror each other and how we carry these generational curses and traumas and things like that, whatever you want to call it. One of my mother's personalities was of her mother. And when she would turn into her abusive alcoholic mother, she would then think I was her. And so my mother literally replayed her childhood through me when she switched to this personality. And she could do things that she could not do normally. Like my mom has always been kind of frail and weak and has had a lot of health issues. And um, when she would switch these personalities, she would become strong. She would be able to do cartwheels outside. Like the power of the mind is absolutely unbelievable. But when I was that age, I wasn't as intrigued by it as I am now. I was more scared of it and afraid of it. And I really had to shut down a lot of these really valuable pieces of myself very early in life. I was born a very gifted child. I remember levitating things when I was little, rocks. And I remember hanging out with fairies and going to this enchanted fairy garden with this magical house and this beautiful arch of greenery and flowers. Like, this was me as a child. But when she got diagnosed, it welcomed in a lot of darkness into my life where a lot of the light I was used to was gone because now I was having to survive. And I was also experiencing a lot of things in my reproductive organs. Like very early in life, I started having things wrong with my ovaries, cysts in my ovaries. In my cervix, I would have unexpected bleeding and not know why. And stuff like this. And when you have all of this trauma happening at one time, you learn to become very good at dissociating. And so that's how I got through my childhood. So a lot of this trauma, I remembered little fragments, bits and pieces here and there, but the whole story has unfolded for me over years and a lot of meditation. Um, and by the time I was 9, the tornado was really going, and my parents got divorced because the abuse had gotten so bad. And I started living with my dad. part time with my mom, and I was isolated from my whole family. So any family I had that treated me with love or anything, they were gone. My parents were divorced. They blamed it on that. There's all these conflicting stories, like there always is in family drama. And excuse me, I've been moving out a lot of energy in my throat, by the way. I think preparing for this interview and other things happening in my life.
Plus the eclipse yesterday,
Oh my
that
gosh.
energy.
Yes, the energy has been crazy. Um, but when I spent time with my mom, we were raised very poor. I was raised in like a 400 square foot 1970s single wide trailer that had holes in the floor and bugs and mold. And my dad was a chain smoker, and it was not a good atmosphere. And when my mom got her own place, she didn't have a lot of help. So she started selling drugs, prescription drugs. And she would have people knocking on the door in the middle of the night and busting into the house. And I would have to find places to hide. So not only was I hiding from my own mother when she was coming after me, I was hiding from all of these people coming in. And I had fragmented memories of meeting older men and them bringing me gifts and feeling like something's not right about this memory, but then it would just shut off. So I would never be able to continue this memory. But I started having more things with my reproductive system happening. I started my cycle at 11 years old, very early, and it was extremely painful every time. I also started having like urges very early in life, didn't really understand those. So I ended up losing my virginity around 13 to a 16-year-old. And that was the start of just bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship, going more and more into abuse with each relationship. And through this, I started using drugs and drinking in between 13 and 14 years old because I wanted love so badly, so badly. But love to me had never felt like real love. Love to me was always abuse and lies and fear and survive and give your body to whoever you want it, whenever they want it. And as long as they say, I love you, that's really all I needed. But I knew that something wasn't right. So that's where the drugs and drinking started coming in. And I started trying to dissociate even more from my life. And things got worse in my family. And I ended up getting involved with a boyfriend who had a mother with some trauma. And this was probably around 15 years old. She always made me, when we ate dinner, sit with a broomstick behind my arms so I would sit up straight. Like she didn't like the way that I slouched. And she didn't like that I didn't eat much. People throughout my life have really had an issue with how much I eat. And they don't consider that I was starving for most of my life. We didn't have fresh food. It had mold all over it. It had bugs in it. You learn how to starve yourself and survive when you're in environments like that. And I could never eat a lot. And she ended up telling the congregation at church that we went to please pray for me and my eating disorder. Um, and then in other churches we went to, if I were to bring my mom, we would be kicked out of the church because we were possessed by demons, because her personalities would switch, the energy would take over. We went to a Pentecostal church, so there was a lot of energy and people were speaking in tongues and stuff like that. And so I always grew up feeling like something was wrong with me and I was broken, or I was somehow like wrapped in this dark cloud and couldn't get out of it. And to make matters worse, I had an aunt and uncle that would tell me, you should just kill yourself. Like, if you
My
feel like
gosh.
that, no kidding, you should. I mean, suicide was dinner talk with this part of my family. So the family that loved me was taken away, but the family that wanted me to die stayed in my life. And so I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with brainwave states, but in between like 9 and 12 or 7 and 12 years old, we're in this beautiful alpha, very programmable brainwave state. And anything told to us in between these ages goes straight to our subconscious mind and it stays there forever unless we learn how to tap into it later and rewrite our program. And so during this time, I was being programmed with your life isn't worth anything. You should probably just die. And you should give your body to all of these people. And you're not safe in your life. These are things that I've been programmed to believe, and this spiritual journey has helped me overcome. And by 17 years old, I ended up developing cervical cancer and failed my senior year of high school and was told by my principal because I missed too many days, not because of grades. I finally told my principal, I was diagnosed with cancer. And he said, there are plenty of people who have cancer and still live their life. So I was like drawing all of this negativity to me for a very long
Wow.
time.
So
Never
it's
had
coming from different
sympathy.
directions.
I'm telling you, it was like a flood my whole life. And again, all of this stuff gets programmed into you. And so by the time I finished high school, I did go to a community college to get my diploma. But in this time period, I was working and met someone who introduced me to cocaine. And before that, I was just drinking and doing pills, and which is not good, but cocaine is a whole different beast. And it gave me a very good way to disconnect for real, to where everything just kind of went silent in my life. And I didn't have to hear all of this noise in my head telling me that I should just die, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy of love. And I just kept drawing it to me and ended up meeting a tattoo artist who was abusive and ended up having another near death experience at the end of his hand, choking me out when I found out that he was cheating on me. And that's kind of when I made the decision that I needed to change my life. Like things weren't going good and I needed to get out of there. And I left out the second NDE, probably the most important one, which is very interesting that I left this out.
Okay.
So, what kind of spun me into using pills is I was in a car accident where I got hit head on the way to work. And I ended up like what I remembered then was just screaming and kind of coming back to my body and saying, why am I screaming? And then I realized, oh my God, I've been in a car accident. It's smoking. The airbag has hit me. I need to get out. I ended up breaking my neck. I shattered my elbow, all of this stuff. And the healing from that has been a continuous process, even to this day, having to go to a chiropractor pretty regularly. Because when you don't remember your near death experience, you don't process it. It's not processed in your system. It's just kind of hanging here. And it's a big deal when you die and come back. So it's something that needs to be processed. And it takes people years sometimes to process these experiences. But because I've become so good at dissociation from all of this abuse and trauma, I just learned how to put things in little boxes and close up the little box. And I thought that it would just stay there forever. Um, but after my third NDE and I moved and I started getting my life in order, I got sober. I ended up getting a full time job, completely overworking myself. So I went from the addiction to drugs to my addiction to work, anything to not feel what's inside of those little boxes, anything to keep those little boxes hidden from me. So I was go, 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 go all the time. But I
That's
started kind of, go ahead.
Sorry, that's it's really interesting how you replace the addiction of substance abuse with the addiction of being busy and doing. I feel so many people are in that part of without ever knowing or realizing that it's a coping mechanism.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And almost an addiction to dissociation is how I look at it. Like we've been taught to run away from the darkness inside of us. Everybody's just running for the light, which is wonderful. The light's great. It feels great when you're in it. But here on earth, we still have darkness and we have to look at it. We have to accept it, or it will come back for us. And it will come back like a flood, which is what happened to me when I woke up. Because I ended up, thank God, I didn't even realize I was slowly waking up over a course of years before I actually did. Because in this abusive work environment, I ended up saying, you know what? I'm tired of doing all this stuff. I want to do what I want to do. I started going to cosmetology school because I really like doing hair. And I enjoyed it, but then I started the same pattern of just overworking myself and getting in these abusive, toxic working relationships with bosses and putting everybody else's needs before myself and just draining myself dry. And during that process, I met my husband, and we've definitely had our waves as well. I mean, being with someone that has a lot of trauma that's been buried down really deep is tough for both of us. And I could do a whole another podcast episode on our journey through our relationship and healing all this stuff. Um, but by the time COVID came, we had a daughter. She was 5 years old, and I for the first time in my life had to slow down. I was forced to slow down. And how many other people do you know like that too, where they haven't slowed down and then COVID hit and people started going crazy? I mean, they started really becoming unhinged. And it's because we've been running. And then all of a sudden we come to a dead stop. And my daughter just so happened to be the age that I was when my mom was diagnosed and a lot of my abuse started. So it was like trigger after trigger after trigger after trigger when COVID hit. And the only solace I could find was outside. And like I ripped up our entire yard. I started this huge garden, and that was the only place where I could really find peace. And I think that that really is what catapulted too into awakening because people don't realize the power of our planet and the power of the earth. And we have become very disconnected from the earth. I mean, as soon as we started wearing rubber soles, we pretty much screwed ourselves, you know? And COVID, a lot of people did start getting outside and they started gardening. And I think that's really what saved a lot of people is just going outside. We needed it so much. And it's funny because I say going outside, but you're also going inside at the
Yeah.
same time because,
Grounding is so important. And just
yes.
like when I go outside and I touch the earth, like I most of the time I don't wear gloves. And then of
Mhm.
course my hands get all beat up, my nails are black. And I always ask myself, oh, why did I put the gloves? And I know why. It's because you don't get that physical connection with the earth. And I
Right.
need that. And your soul needs that. So this is why I'm always doing that. I'm assuming other people might go through the same thing. But that's why, because the glove, yeah, it protects your skin, but it also keeps you from feeling and touching the earth.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And for me, I haven't found a lot of safety on this planet.
Mm.
I remember being little and laying in the back of the truck, just looking up at the stars, saying, "When are you going to come and get me? Like, please come back." Like, I knew that my soul did not belong here. It was from somewhere else. It was not from here. I've always known that on a very deep level. But, the earth never felt safe. So I spent a lot of time being ungrounded. And then when I started grounding again, it's like everything just started coming up at one time and memories started resurfacing. I started having nightmares. And I had already processed a lot of stuff with my mom before all of this. Not a lot of stuff with my dad, though, and other men in my life. And I started having nightmares of a family member sexually abusing me. And I didn't know who it was. I just knew it was somebody close to me. And then eventually it became clear that it was family. So then I started reaching out to family members, started calling people and saying, "Do you know who would have done this to me?" And I knew when it started and how long it lasted, how many years, and all of this stuff. And nobody could tell me anything, but I was like digging a deeper hole for myself as I continued to try to figure out who this was. And in the process, I ended up losing someone who was very close to me when I was little, who was part of the family that got taken away from me. And I got to see him one more time before he died. And it was like pure magic. But when I lost him, I went to the funeral, and an aunt of mine who I had not seen in decades told me, "You look tired and, you look like you've been going through a lot. We didn't really know what happened with you kids and like, how are you?" And I started telling her, "I'm having all of these memories coming back up. I don't know who it is and it's driving me crazy." And she told me, anytime you open up that door to the past, nothing good is back there. You need to look forward and see what you have right now in your life. You have a husband, you have a beautiful daughter, you have a home, you have all of this. You got to leave the past behind. And it really resonated with me. But then when I went home, it was like this urge of, who is this? And then I went to bed one night and woke up at 2 a.m. and saw a black shadowy figure above my body. And it felt very familiar. And I ended up going to the bathroom and made a plan to kill myself right there. And I'm so grateful that in these moments, because I've had to deal with suicidal ideation for a long time, I'm really glad that something brings me back. But this is the closest I had ever been. And luckily, my husband's face, my daughter's face came into my vision and told me, "Please don't do this." And so I snapped out of it. I went back to bed. And I'm telling you, it was like a switch where I woke up and suddenly nothing mattered. Everything was just gone. And the only thing that mattered was love. And I don't know if you're familiar with walk in experiences,
Yes, I am.
but I do believe I had a walk in experience before my grand awakening. There's no other explanation for how
So,
I went from the state I was in to this one so quickly.
so you wake up and you see this shadow. Is this shadow a out non-human being? Is it a memory? Like what is that?
It was a shadow of my past.
Okay. And
So my subconscious really wanted me to remember something that happened to me, but
yes.
I was fighting it. I was fighting it tooth and nail. And this is the power of the mind that I was talking about earlier. The mind will show you if it's been locked away too long and it's ready to come out, it will show you however it needs to show you in order to wake you up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. And after that day, 2 weeks later, before COVID, we had planned to go to the Grand Canyon, and we couldn't travel. So then, once the travel restrictions lifted, 2 weeks after this little episode, my husband and I decided it's time to go to the Grand Canyon. We're going to do it. So we went. I'd never heard of Sedona before,
Uh-huh.
but I was looking up like Groupons and things to do in the area, and I saw a UFO tour on Groupon in Sedona. And so I said, I had never been to Arizona either. Being in survival mode in a little itty bitty town, I didn't get to travel. The beach was like 30 minutes away from us, and I never even got to go to the freaking beach. Like, I was stuck in this box of like dark sludge my whole life. And so, like, I was coming with a very limited perspective of life. And when I got to Arizona, I was just like, oh my God, this is great. Like I've always been open minded to other ways of life. I've always known I know so little. I know so little about life. And there's so much more out there, but people kind of get stuck in thinking that they know everything. And you don't. You don't. None of us do. There's always something to learn. There's always something to see and experience and witness and be a part of. And when I went to Sedona, before all this, I had all this pain in my body. I dealt with endometriosis and like herniated disc in my back and all this, always in pain. And as soon as we started pulling up to Sedona, I started noticing that like my body felt different. Like I wasn't in as much pain as I usually was. And I kind of just let it go and said it was a coincidence and didn't think a whole lot of it. But it lasted the whole time that we were there. And when we did this UFO tour, we had went to a psychic right beforehand because I'm like, I want to do all the things. I want to do all the weird, crazy, woo-woo things. And she gave us a very interesting message. So we were going into this UFO tour with like a little spark. She was like the little spark that was getting the wheels churning a bit. And the people on the tour gave us these night vision goggles, and you can see like the whole sky lights up when you have these things on. And you're seeing things moving around and shooting in the sky. She's showing us orbs coming up and down the mountain and stuff. It's super cool. Some of it you could see with your naked eye. There was one orange orb that almost looked like it had little baby orbs coming out of it. You could see that big orange orb with your eyes.
That's
But
so,
what?
I've never heard about this. This is amazing.
Yeah, well, so it gets better.
Uh-huh.
After that, we gave them our goggles, and this is a tour of people. Just so happened to be on our wedding anniversary, by the way. So they gave us a cool little green alien to take home that I still have. Um, we were just kind of talking at the end, laughing, talking about how cool everything was. And then all of a sudden, an older man in the group goes, "What the hell is that?" And we all look over to the side and we see this huge string of lights. And you can almost see where it's like, it's perfectly going in a circle almost. But I couldn't tell if it was one big ship or if it was several separate ships. Because all of a sudden, it's like right after it caught our attention, the lights go boom, 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 and one disappears right after another. And I'm telling you, it was the size of the mountain. In Sedona, there are some big mountains. So we were just kind of like, huh. And this is the crazy thing because after this experience, I started studying UFO experiences and ET experiences because I wanted to know what happened to me. This seems to be a theme where we left. The whole time we were driving back to Flagstaff, my head was out the window like a dog, and I was just in pure bliss. I mean, I could feel so connected. I had no pain in my body. Wasn't even thinking about what just happened. I was just thinking about how freaking good I felt in that moment. We went to bed. The next day, we did a Grand Canyon tour. We went to bed. The next day, we did some stuff. We went to bed. The next day, we're getting up. And I say, "Are we going to talk about what happened? You saw that, right? That really happened?" And this is the repeat theme where like it takes a little while for it to settle in, for it to register in our mind.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, it happened. It really happened. And from then on, I just had to know everything. I mean, for the next year, I read over 200 books. And it
Wow.
started with UFO experiences and ET abductions. And then it started talking about energy and our connection to everything in the world. And then I came across Dolores Cannon. And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, she was really the match that set me ablaze because I had some powerful experiences just listening to her books. Um, but through all of this, I was having all these grand experiences. But then all of a sudden, things would come crashing down again. And these memories would start to resurface. And by this point, I started getting energy work done. Thank God. Energy work has saved my life with working through this trauma. I'm telling you, I've seen so many energy healers, and I owe each one of them such a special place in my heart because they have saved my life by showing me all of these things inside of those boxes that I've crammed down inside of my subconscious. And I came to the realization that the person that night that I saw was my father, and that he had been sexually abusing me for years when I was little. I was isolated in a house with him after the divorce, and he had me all to himself however he wanted. And so it was kind of strange because when I had this realization, my first reaction was gratitude. Gratitude. Everybody else I know who I've shared this story with, their immediate reaction is like, oh my God, kill him, hate him, hang him. Why? Why? Like, to me, I felt like, thank you. Everything makes so much sense now. All of the reproductive issues I had, all of the abusive relationships I had been in, all of the feelings of unworthiness and feeling like my body belonged to everybody else. It suddenly made so much sense. And I started learning about his life and how he was programmed by his father to do this at a very young age. And he didn't want to. But every single time he fought his father would beat the shit out of him and make him do it. So, how can I hate him? How can I hate him? He was programmed in those really super crucial years, just like I was. And he didn't have the tools that I have to heal through all of this stuff. Now, I do believe that people still have a choice to make as they get older. They can be better. They can make better choices. They can get out of the trauma. They can get out of the darkness. They can do better and not abuse people. My parents still abuse me. They are still very toxic people. Therefore, neither one of them are in my life right now. Will that be forever? I don't know. But for right now, I need space and time to heal while these boxes continue to come open because they're still coming open. But now it's boxes to past life memories and ways that my family has been stuck in the karmic wheel for thousands of years, and how I'm here to heal all of that. I'm here to end the cycle. I'm here to transmute it and turn it into something beautiful. And that's why we're having this conversation, because I have come to know through this work that everyone is a reflection of me. Everyone is a fragment of me because I am a fragment of God, and God is everything that there is, dark and light. And every single person on this planet has their own story with both polarities. And a lot of people have been afraid to share their story because of either being suppressed again, because everybody's told them to sit down and shut up in their life, or they've been scared of how people are going to react, if people are going to be mad. Now is the time to not be afraid of that stuff. We have to stand in our power and share our stories because it is the key to our healing. It's the key to our freedom from this matrix that we've been living in. And I, with the near death experiences, I started doing Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Oh,
him.
absolutely. I love Joe Dispenza.
He has, I won't give him all the credit because I've done a lot of stuff to heal myself, but the tools that he's given me have astronomically changed my life. I already was having Kundalini waking up before I was introduced to his work. But then when I went to his retreat, I didn't realize that he was moving Kundalini. I didn't know that that's what was happening. I tend to follow breadcrumbs without asking many questions because I know that I know nothing. Again, the universe always has a bigger plan for me. And it was so synchronistic going to his retreat the first time. And I've got my story about my experience on my podcast page, and I also have done a testimonial through his page. So if anybody wants to hear about my experience, it's on there.
Oh, we'll definitely need to put those links in the notes here so people can get and see those.
Sounds good. But it was life changing. And my very first meditation that I had at his retreat was remembering all of my near death experiences.
Oh, wow.
So the first one was flying out of the truck, and I saw these two white, kind of glowing, they almost looked like toothpicks. They didn't have any arms or legs, they were just kind of toothpicks and glowing white. And I heard them say to me, like I had experienced the whole incident again as an observer. I wasn't attached to it at all. And at the very end, when I was rolling down the road, they popped up and said to me, okay, you see what you've gotten yourself into. You see who they are. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I'm telling you, in like a split second, I said, stay. Like, what? Why are you even asking this stupid question? Put me back in my body. Like, go away. I don't want you. And it was, when I was re experiencing this, it was like, oh my God, like I really did choose this. I had the opportunity to leave and I chose so quickly to stay. What? And I mean, I was crying and it was just ugly. Um, and then that night, I was laying in bed and had my eyes closed, and then all of a sudden the light in the room gets super bright. I don't sleep with lights. I'm one of these people that like even the red light on the TV, I'm like covering up with post-it notes and stuff.
Me too.
I hate light when I sleep. So there was no light in this room, and all of a sudden it was just illuminated. And I heard them say again, I knew it was them, the same beings that were there in my near death experience. I heard them ask me, are you ready to see us now? And I said in my head, I don't know if I'm ready. Can I just feel you for now? And as soon as I said that, it was like they popped me out of my body. I was looking at myself from up here, laying on the bed, and they were showing me, you think that you're this person. You think that this is you, but this is not you, my dear. You are this light coming from back here, and you are shining your light and creating this entire hologram. And every person in this hologram is a character in your story. This is you. And then again, it was like it was off. I fell asleep, and then it was on to the next day at Joe Dispenza. And for the second near death experience, that was a big one because I think when I broke my neck, my C2, your C2 is connected to your pineal gland.
Hmm.
And when you break your C2, it breaks your connection to spirit, your connection. I mean, you're never totally disconnected, but this is a path that we choose to take sometimes where we disconnect ourselves a bit from spirit so that we can find our way back. And our way back sometimes can really suck in the 3D, but it's teaching us a hell of a lot of things about ourselves. And it's teaching us a lot of ways that we can get stronger in our life and show up better for the people out there that need help. And it is a gradual process coming back into my body. I feel like since this second near death experience, I have been disconnected from my higher self. And through healing all of these things, because I've also learned and really understand how trauma holds in the body. And when we break bones and we have muscle sprains or pulled muscles or whatever it is, that means that that spot is weak energetically. And so I would not have broken my C2 bone if that spot was not already holding a lot of trauma. And with me shutting down my gifts and only seeing the darkness through my life, I would say, yeah, my pineal gland is probably pretty calcified and there's a lot of stuck energy there. So when I broke my neck, all of that energy kind of like shrouded out. And I've had to find these little bits and pieces that were lost again inside of my subconscious mind and put all of these pieces back together and come back into myself and who I am truly as a spirit and a soul. Um, and my awakening journey has just been, I mean, this was only 3 years ago that I woke up. And because of my drive and my endless need for information and knowledge, I've become incredibly well versed in this topic, but I've also lived it through experience. So it's not just about reading the books. These books, I've had to take some hardcore integration to really know on a cellular level that this stuff is true, that these things do happen for a reason, that our life really is just a hologram. And we hold on to things so tightly, thinking that this is the only life we're going to live, when not at all. It's just a blink. I mean, our life is over in a second, really. But for us, it seems to drag by if we let it. But if we continue to accept these dark parts about ourselves and hold them in love and hold them in grace, especially. Grace is so big, just having grace for ourselves. And when we have these triggers, instead of saying, oh, am I upset? Why am I feeling like this? Or instead of running from them, sit with them, hold them in grace, and say, there's a reason why I'm feeling uncomfortable. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? And dig into yourself, dig into your subconscious, sit in the silence or with sound frequencies or whatever you do. Be away from stimulation with your eyelids closed and look inside your heart and see what's hiding. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. We have lived on a trauma planet for a real long time. And I think that our Earth is kind of done with being a trauma planet. I think that she's done holding space for people who abuse her. And the divine feminine that's been suppressed on this planet is coming back with, ooh,
Full
hellfire.
force. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's strong. It is so strong. She is woman and you will hear her roar, is kind of the energy that I'm getting from it, because she's done. She's done. The earth is supposed to be a place of balance. It's supposed to be like yin and yang, equal balance between both dark and light. And for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, because our earth has been reset how many times? I mean, there's been floods, fires, ice ages, all of these things. We keep messing up. And it's time now where the earth is like, all right, y'all, I'm going to share some of my stuff with you now. You're not going to continue to consume my energy. I'm going to consume some of yours and I'm going to suck you inside of me so you feel everything. And then you can recognize that you are a part of me. And what you're feeling within me is what you're feeling within yourself. And what you're seeing within yourself, you're going to see within me. I mean, everything that happens is connected. And, we have all these things happening personally in our lives. And then if you look at the collective, oh my gosh, the things happening right now in the world, you can tell that we're all under some sort of destruction internally. Our old paradigm is falling apart, and we're now going into this new paradigm of unity and balance. Oh my gosh, if we could just have the balance where it's not just about love and light all the time, but it's not about negativity and grief all the time. It's about holding space for both equally and knowing that one does not exist without the other. As above, so below. So, anyway, I know I've said a lot. That was kind of
Yeah,
my story and where I'm at now.
I love it. I do want to go back to a couple of points. You did mention that you remember your second NED, NDE. I
Mhm.
always mess them up. Um, and so when you remember that, like, are you seeing your body again from outside? Did you get like a life review? Did you get the chance of choosing to come back like you did when you were little as well?
I did, but it was a little different. I think that the second NDE was something that was unavoidable, but not something that I had planned. So again, we are affected by the collective. We are a group consciousness here. And I think that there were a lot of things happening in the collective at that point. And I am so in tune with collective energy. I mean, sometimes I wonder, do I even have my own energy or is it just collective? I mean, this is really, and truthfully, it is all collective. I mean, we are all one, but I'm still kind of integrating that knowing. But I think there was a lot of stuff happening in the collective, and I was really trying to avoid and detach from it.
Hmm.
And I couldn't. I mean, I was already going down a road in my own life and really needed a reset myself. So when it happened, I believe it was more confusion, where it wasn't so much me saying, yes, I want to come back. I was tired. I was tired at that point. My soul was really beat up and really neglected of love. And when I remember actually being worked on by my one of the first energy healers I started going to after I woke up, when I started remembering my near death experience, she was one of the main people there healing me. And she was talking to my other guides and saying, this is the last time we're doing this, right? This is the last time she's doing this. I think that they knew how much it was going to change me. And I didn't learn. I didn't learn from it. And this is the thing about the universe is like when we're down the wrong path, when we're not aligned with our truth, the universe would try to nudge us over. You know, it'll nudge a little and a little more and a little more. And then if we don't listen, big things happen in our life, like car accidents or major sickness or death in the family, things like that, when we're not listening. And I continued to not listen, and I had already experienced a near death experience. Like that wasn't bad enough for me already. I just, I loved abuse. It was all I knew, and that was love. I mean, when you deal with molestation, your perception of love is so skewed. It's so warped and jaded and just weird. And that's kind of the state I was in where I just thought that love was abuse. And so I just continued to chase after abuse and it felt really comfortable.
Yeah.
So by the time the third NDE came along, it was kind of the same thing with the wreck where I went out of my body and I came back and I was screaming and didn't know why I was screaming. It's like screaming is the thing that brings me back, I
Hmm.
think.
It
Um,
grounds you.
Right, exactly. And what's funny is in my healing with releasing anger, I'm still getting used to doing that. And I have a real issue with screaming. Wonder why. Um, but I am still remembering fragments of that one. That one was a tough one. Um, that one really shook me hard. Um, and for it to be intentional and at the hands of someone who said that they loved me, I'm still processing a lot of stuff around that one. And I'm sure after talking about this,
Hmm.
it'll start coming up. I've seen little synchronicities with like his name on license plates and different stuff showing up in my life around choking and all of this energy working up in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do notice that before I process these things, it's like my body already knows it's coming
Yeah.
and the energy will start moving up. I'll either get a sinus infection or bronchitis in my lungs because I have a lot of grief in my lungs and stuff like that. Um, or, my stomach will be in knots, or my back will hurt, or my head will hurt. It's funny, like our body sends us all these signals when we don't even know. And we take all this medication to say, oh my God, I have a headache. Let me shut it down. You're keeping that trauma in there. It's trying to come out. Every time you take a Tums for your bellyache, you're stopping your trauma from coming out. All that's living in your gut, and our gut holds so much too. I could go on about that. Um,
How did you
which
become aware that about making this connection, right? Because yeah, we do live in this really fast-paced life where like this appeal for anything, and it's just keeping the energy within, it's just keeping us from feeling really. It's just numbing us. Um, so was it through this energy healer that you began to put these things together and allow yourself to feel? How did you make that connection?
So I actually made the connection before my spiritual awakening when I was diagnosed with ADHD and put on ADHD medication on top of the anxiety and depression medication I was already taking. It ended up causing internal third degree burns anytime I went outside. And like I said, that's where I was finding my peace at that time. And before this happened, I was like an experiment for doctors. Like I was being misdiagnosed over and over and over again, either bipolar or this or that. And then they would put me on medicine and it would make me bipolar. I'm like, you thought I was bipolar before. Wait until you see me now, arranging furniture at 3 o'clock in the morning because of this medicine I was on. And then my daughter was a baby at this point, and I was a zombie and couldn't keep my eyes open because of the medication that they were putting me on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these internal third degree burns came, I said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm done being an experiment. I'm done feeling like this. I'm done having the side effects. Like this stuff is not good for me. And any state that I'm in mentally has to be better than what I'm experiencing right now with this. So I started slowly weaning off, and then I had my spiritual awakening. Funny how that happens, right? When we
Uh-huh.
hold space to get clear in our mind, then we start getting some clarity into our life. It's just really uncomfortable. But with the connection to my body, I pretty much found that through Dolores Cannon's work. Because in her work, she started seeing that when she would regress people and they would have cancer or diabetes or whatever they had, it would be the same reason. Like their higher self would say the same reason over and over and over again. Like cancer is always anger. Like 100% of the time, it's always anger. And depending on where the cancer is at in your body, so let's just say breast cancer, because so many people suffer from breast cancer, it's nurturing. The breast symbolizes nurturing from our mother. So, depending on either the left or the left side is usually feminine, right side is usually masculine. You can figure out where your lack of nurturing came from, your dad's side or your mom's side. And then you can move that anger from your lack of nurturing from mom or dad out, and your cancer's gone like that. I mean, sometimes it takes longer because it takes time to process. But in Dr. Joe's work, people have these instantaneous healings all the time. I had
Yeah.
autoimmune disease, adrenal fatigue, crazy anxiety before I went. Even though I was in a spiritual awakening, you better believe I was still experiencing some pretty severe anxiety and depression, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. This path can be very isolating sometimes
Oh,
and can
for sure.
feel so lonely. So I don't want people to think that like just because you're on a spiritual path, it's going to be peachy. I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's not. It's not. I mean, you will have these enormous bursts of love and connection and oneness and wholeness and so much healing. But like I said before, it's balance. It's all about duality here. And there are a lot of teachers too that like to tell us to live outside of duality. if that exists in a timeline on Earth, that's great. But for right now, in this moment, duality still exists. And I think that the best thing to do is accept it for what it is, because I've found that if I accept things for what they are, it just kind of releases and then magic starts happening. Like my husband lost his job the last Friday of my retreat at Joe Dispenza. So we knew it was a big shift. And we didn't live in fear for a long time. We had some savings, but then when savings started kind of dwindling down, we started facing the human reaction of, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like we have this mortgage payment, we have to pay for cars, we have to pay for groceries and all these things. What are we going to do? And as soon as we said, what's the worst that can happen? Seriously. Like this work has brought in so much magic into our life. We've got unbelievable support now. The community that I've built since being in this work is unbelievable. So if we lose everything, I know we will have a support net. If we land straight on our butt, I know we won't be there for long. And I know that it'll align us to where we need to be. So the fear just dissipates. And then all of a sudden, all these opportunities start showing up as soon as we can just accept for what could be and just release our fears. I mean, somebody told me, I think if we say our fear out loud, it dissipates the fear by like 30% or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it's kind of like when we hold the fear inside, we're so afraid to even speak it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it just builds up within us. And when you speak it, it's like, that didn't sound so bad. Or maybe it does, but like it's already out. It's already out of your system. You're not holding it all in.
Right.
It all
And you
builds up.
realize too, those fears are silly sometimes. Like we went to Dollywood a little while ago, and I'm not a fan of heights. I'm not a fan of roller coasters, but I'm all about overcoming myself these days. So I was getting on a roller coaster. And
I love it.
I said to my husband, okay, I'm going to state my fear out loud. I'm afraid that the thing is going to unlatch and I'm going to fly out and I'm going to be decapitated. And he's like, oh my God, are you serious? That's what goes through your head? I'm like, dude, I've been living in darkness my whole life. You want me to get darker? It can get darker. That was just little details. But then
Wow.
it became like a joke,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting on the roller coaster, I felt so much better until I came out of my body later from sheer fear.
I have another question that I want to go back to, or actually, I just want to expand on it because we briefly mentioned it and we didn't explain to the audience. So you mentioned that you had that dark night when you woke up in the middle and you saw this big dark shadow and then you just wanted to leave. And then you saw your husband, your daughter's faces, and you're like, no, I'm gonna stay for this. And then from there on, pretty much everything had changed. And it was like you were a different person. And you said the only thing that I can explain this to happen is that I was walking in that moment. So I understand what that is. You understand what that is. But can you expand a little bit on what a walk-in is for those who don't know, who have no idea? Like, what was that? What were they talking about? What is that? Can you explain that to the audience?
Absolutely. And I think that this is probably happening to more people than we realize, which is probably why it's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a walk-in pretty much happens, and it's 11:11 my time too. It's funny.
Me
Uh,
too.
yeah. So a walk-in happens when a soul is tired, when they've had enough, and they have chosen a big mission. I mean, Dolores Cannon talks about there are so many souls lining up to incarnate on Earth. We already have 8 billion people here. I think we're almost at max capacity, but like God is so excited for his or her, I'm so sorry, programming. God is so excited for its experience that it's just sending people here over and over and over again. And so our life is a lot more valuable than what we think because there are so many other dimensions happening at one time. There are lower dimensions happening, there are higher dimensions happening, all presently right now. And when people say past lives, I'm kind of getting out of the habit of saying past lives because it's not in the past. Everything exists right now. That's why when my aunt told me you have to shut the door to the past, it kept creeping in because the past still existed inside my body. It was still holding as trauma in my body. And I was somehow frozen there, stuck in time. And I needed to move forward. So there are different facets of us living in all of these dimensions, higher and lower, all at one time. And I believe too that our guides are just us in different timelines. So all of my guides are me coming to me from a different dimension or timeline. So when my soul got tired and said, I'm done with this body, another version of me said, whoa there, killer. You think you're done. You got a big mission. You got to get your shit in gear. But this is what I love so much about spirit is they have so much grace. So much grace. And this part of me saw how much I was suffering and said, let me take over while you get some rest. And so then there'll kind of be a swap. And some people look at this like they're taking over my free will or whatever. This is why I'm going to reiterate that whatever soul swaps with your soul is you. It's just another version of you taking over. It's a higher version of you taking over, a version that can come in and help you heal so that you're not so tired and you can go on this mission that you signed up for. Because in my state of mind, I wasn't helping anyone. No one. I mean, I was trying so hard to heal, but I was so stuck in trying to figure out who this person was and why they did this to me. I was making myself victim, victim, victim. And I couldn't move forward so much so that I thought it was better to end my life. When I have a family, I have friends, but I was so stuck in my hurt, in my pain, that I didn't want to continue. So a higher version of me came in and said, all right, I'm going to step in and I'm going to take over. And like now, I'm still this higher version of me, but that other version of me still exists over here and is still with me all the time, all the time. But that version of me is not consciously living in a body right now. So it's like another guide almost. So that it's kind of like they swapped places where like in this other realm she can rest. She doesn't have to worry about being bogged down with the emotions and the weight of being human. She can look from a higher perspective, but still see her darkness because she still exists in those lower frequencies. So she's helping me on both sides, which I think is so beautiful and something that I really take a lot of pride in is I'm not one of these teachers that only preaches one side. I really think that the balance of both polarities is so important. And I'm saying that as my higher self. And I believe too that like there's no way 200 books, reading 200 books in 1 year before my walk in, I would not have retained all of that. I never read like that. I mean, I enjoyed listening to some audiobooks and stuff like that, but I was never that charged. But after that UFO experience, I was charged up and I just was like an infinite well of information. And just since then, I have calmed down a little bit on it because when you have walk-in experiences, the the self that I was before, this was only the second time I've incarnated on this planet. The soul, the higher self that exists within my body now is the first time ever being in a body. And I know that this is like a lot to wrap your head around and a lot to think about, but when I came in as this higher self, I was so excited. I'm like, yes, we are going to heal some stuff. We're going to help some people. We're going to change the world. Everything's going to be light and bright. And yes. And then I started seeing I'm a little ungrounded. I'm starting to lose my footing in my life. Like my 3D things in my life are starting to kind of fall to the wayside. And now my priority is just saving the world, which is great. But I also have a family, also have bills to pay. I also have to like show up for these people. I can't just live in spiritual land and think that I'm really doing a lot of good because I'm just disconnecting again. So that's here recently is really when I came to this awareness because I was having such a hard time staying grounded. And then this other version of me came in and said, I can help. You know me. You remember me. Let's balance. So now she helps me with the grounding piece. So when I get too ungrounded, I just know, okay, it's time to do some laundry. I need to do the dishes. I need to scrub the floor. I need to go outside and garden. Like, I think that a lot of people think of grounding like they have to have this strict ritual of going out barefoot and connecting. All that stuff is beautiful and so healing. But we don't really need to do that. All we really need to do is just exist in our life and recognize that we're human and we're spirit. We are a trinity, mind, body, and spirit. It all exists within us. And the spirit is our emotional body. So people are so cut off from spirit because they're so cut off from their emotions. And then we have mind, body, spirit. So body is obviously physical. And then mind is our intellectual and mental body. So we have to have a balance between our emotional, physical, and mental body. And right now, people's mental bodies are beat up. People are so willing to accept other people's word as truth without checking in with their own intuition.
Well, that's
Because
the programming.
right, exactly. Because we've been programmed to stay just in this mental body and not check in with our emotions and not check in with our physical body. Because our physical body, like I said before, it knows what's going to happen in our life before we ever know. Our mind thinks it's so cunning and so good and so smart. I'm telling you, it ain't got nothing on our physical body and our emotional body because our emotional body and especially our physical body while we're here on this planet, there's so much information contained in this physical body. I mean, we are made up of an unbelievable amount of atoms and cells. And for every atom, it is 99.99999% energy. The 0.0000001% is only physical matter. And we think that this is all physical. But for every single one of those atoms, it is a consciousness. It is holding energy. It is holding information, information to your past, present, and future, because it all exists right now. And if we learn to communicate with those cells, we come more into our body, we start listening to the signals. Oh my God, the magic that happens in our life. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. Well, Kat, we have been going for almost an hour and a half, and so we're kind of out of time. And I feel like the conversation is not even halfway there. There's just so much here, so much information. But tell us a little bit, how can people get in touch with you? And
Sure.
what is it, what are the types of things that you offer to help them?
Sure. So I have my own podcast, Vibing Consciously podcast, where I just talk about my own journey through spiritual healing. I don't really like to preach a lot of things. I like to speak from my own experience because I do know that other people will find themselves in my story. And everybody has a different story to share. So I'm not going to pretend like I know yours, but I hope that you could find something in mine. Um, I also do art. I'm an artist. So I have my website at soulfulexpressionsbycat.com where you can purchase energetic art, or I also do animal art as well. So balance in between both worlds. And my podcast website is vibingconsciouslypodcast.com. I also offer intuitive sessions. This is something that I don't do a lot of because I am really big on sovereignty right now. I am not the type of energy healer or channeler that is going to tell you your exact problem and exactly how to fix it. I believe that you are perfectly capable of coming up with your own answers, but I will help you gather the tools that you need. My gifts are time jumping and being able to see and feel into all timelines at one time, and also feel into the collective. So I can tell you where there's generational stuff. I can tell you whether it's from a different timeline that you're living, and things like that. But I'm not going to clear it for you, because anytime I put my hands over people, I find that it's way too much. I like to go to the core of the issue, and I kind of look at it like a stack of cards. And if I pull the rug out, everything comes falling down. So I don't think that it is my purpose in life to clear energy anymore or to put my hands over people. But I am more than happy to give you the tools. All of the scheduling is through the podcast website. You can go to work with me and see the different things that I offer. I also do channeled art. So if someone wants a piece where we'll have our channeled session, I can give them a beautiful message and paint them a picture just to have with them. I love art, I love music, and I love teaching. So everything I do kind of revolves around those three things, because it's just, yeah, I think nothing exists without art and music. And if I didn't have art and music in my teaching, I definitely wouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely. Well, beautiful. And I'm going to put all of the links that you give me down in the notes. So make sure that you go down so you can find Kat if you want to hear more about her, know more about her, get in touch with her, all of that stuff. Well, it's been lovely here having you. Thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful, multidimensional story, really, on this podcast. I hope that everybody has gotten a lot out of it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye. And okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. What a tender, amazing story this was. This feels like there's so much more. We're definitely going to have Kat back in this podcast again so that we can hear more about her. And I really want to get more into the whole UFO thing, which is what I wanted to bring forward this time, and let you hear more about that as well. When contact's going to happen, all that stuff. So yeah. We will have Kat back again. If you like this podcast and you enjoyed it, please like it, subscribe, and please share with other people, because that is what helps these messages come through. Love, so much love and support for you. I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.